Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we are specifically going to talk about something very interesting, which is Hasbro D&D is not giving the answer to what is D&D, in my humble opinion, which is really fascinating, and I think there's a very distinct, very important reason for this, and I think we really need to talk about it. All right, let's get into this. Okay, so what is happening? I think the most important secular question in the world is what is Dungeons & Dragons? And the reason why is I think if the Muggle world, actually not even the Muggle world, if a majority of the people playing Dungeons & Dragons understand what Dungeons & Dragons is, then Dungeons & Dragons is going to become what it actually is, which is a human improvement engine. And specifically a experiential modeling engine, being able to predict the future with experiential modeling. There's a lot of, and people, I talk about Dungeons and Dragons in context to theology and in context to religion. And the reason why is in religion, we have a bunch of freighted words. Like the word baptism, there's 100 books. There's literally 1,000 books have been written on the subject of baptism. That word contains so much freight that it's hard to even explain how much meaning is in the word baptism. Experiential modeling, right? I've discussed it on this channel, and I get people who come up in my comments and they're like, "Scott, explain what you just said." And I'm like, I have explained what I just said. I've explained it in the 7,400 videos that are on this channel. You're gonna need to follow me. You're gonna need to marinate yourself in what I am throwing down here, right? I'm not going to repeat myself in the comments for what I already put into a video, right? Like, so there's a ton but the reality is so basically I believe the future of Dungeons & Dragons is it taking its place as the most powerful secular human improvement engine, and serving as a human improvement engine because it is being used as an experiential modeling system that feeds a prediction engine. I believe that Dungeons & Dragons can be a prediction engine, that we can see the future with Dungeons & Dragons by doing experiential modeling. And by doing that, we can fundamentally change, improve, allow to learn, allow to grow, and transform every single person at the table. And I'm the only person on the planet that believes this, right? But all of this comes from, if what I'm saying is true, then we need the answer to the question, what is Dungeons & Dragons, right? And I'm sitting here saying, hey, I know what Dungeons & Dragons is, and I'm telling you what it is. It is a human improvement engine that works because Dungeons & Dragons allows for experiential modeling that fuels the most powerful prediction engine that's ever been created. Okay? Well, that's what I'm saying, right? And so that's my answer to you on what is Dungeons & Dragons. In my humble opinion, that's what Dungeons & Dragons is. What is Hasbro's answer to what is Dungeons & Dragons? Well, we don't have to guess. I could tell it to you, right? So if you go onto D&D Beyond, you can go and all you need is a subscription, all you need is an account. You don't even need a subscription. This is completely free. Anybody can see this, right? You go onto D&D Beyond, you get yourself an account, you go to New Player's Guide, right? And the first question there is, what is D&D? It's the question that I have dedicated a huge amount of my life to answering, okay? What is Hasbro's answer? Well, it's not an answer. Go read it. You know what it says? It says, in D&D, blah, 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 right? It tells you what people do when they participate in Dungeons & Dragons, right? It does not answer the question of what is D&D. It says when people sit down to do D&D, they do this, right? So it'd be like asking somebody, what is a wedding? And they're saying, at a wedding, right, people go to a party afterwards and they drink punch. Did they explain to you what a wedding was? No, they told you the activities that happen at a wedding, right? Or subsequent to a wedding, right? Same thing here. The question is, what is D&D? There's no answer there. It says, in D&D, the Dungeon Master does this, the player does this, right? But it doesn't answer, it doesn't even remotely, it doesn't at all answer the question of what is Dungeons and Dragons. It doesn't answer it in any way. None. That's incredible. That is truly incredible. I think that is astounding. I cannot tell you how important that is, right? And the reason why is, so what should be there if the muggles are right? What should be there if the bad dungeon masters and the bad dragon masters, who and the majority of dungeon masters and the majority of dragon masters, the majority of players believe the following. They believe that the answer there should be, in 1974, Gary Gygax created a game. Dungeons and Dragons is that game, right? That's the old answer. That is the old answer, right? And I think even 5 years ago, Hasbro would have been tempted to put that answer up. But I think what I'm saying is becoming real within the walls of Renton, Washington design quarters for Dungeons and Dragons. Increasingly, no one there believes, in my humble opinion, that Dungeons and Dragons is a game. And when asked what is Dungeons and Dragons, they don't give an answer, right? They simply say, this is what happens with Dungeons and Dragons. This is what dungeons do. This is what players do when they participate in Dungeons and Dragons. They don't, it says in Dungeons and Dragons. It doesn't define Dungeons and Dragons. It does not say what is Dungeons and Dragons. It just says what people do, right? Now, I actually think this is correct, right? People want to know what Dungeons and Dragons is. But Hasbro, in my opinion, with this very clear non-answer, is saying, we don't know. No one knows. Maybe Scott Garibay knows. Maybe he's right. I think that's what the real answer there is. They're saying, we know this thing. We know we got a tiger by the tail. This tiger is pulling us through the desert, through the jungle, through the swamp, right? Our feet are skidding. We could barely see where this thing is taking us. And I think it's true. I think Dungeons and Dragons has already destroyed 2 companies, right? It destroyed TSR, right? Because it just broke out of the containment of that company. It literally shattered the boundaries of TSR. TSR couldn't contain it. And I think that's the same for Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast, I don't actually think is a company. I think it's a sticker on Hasbro, right? And they're like, yeah, we'll pretend WotC is still around. They're not. Right? Well, Wizards of the Coast really isn't real. It's just Hasbro, right? And Hasbro almost got broken recently by D&D. There was a huge, huge rumor. They had to come out and be like, we're not selling to a $500 billion, international conglomerate. Like, D&D is incredible. And what is it? It's what I said it is. It's a human improvement engine. Genuinely. I really believe that's what it is. And so why do people pretend not to know this, right? There's a very good reason. Why do people pretend? They either don't care, they legitimately don't know, they just don't understand, or they know, they understand, and it terrifies them. It absolutely terrifies them. And they're not wrong. This is really unusual. What we're doing is we're actually redefining identity itself. And that is a little scary, right? And for some people, that could be terrifying, right? Like, when one discipline in America looked at people who actually dealt in multiple identities previously, they actually called it a condition, right? Like, that's astounding, right? Like, that's why this is so frightening, right? Everything about this is groundbreaking, in my humble opinion. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking, subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.